Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, Patrick Donoghue here, news editor with the Irish Farmers Journal. Now that the dust is settling on this week's big budget headlines, let's take a closer look on what it means for farmers. The Irish Farmers Journal farm finance specialist Peter Young sat down with our digital editor Thomas Hubert to crunch some numbers.
We've had a busy 2 days in the journal, and when the budget is announced on Tuesday, it does give us a lot of time to look and reflect and actually see what the analysis and what it means to farmers. And by and large, this budget, was received very well by farmers, very well by farm organisations and also industry as well. It was going to be a giveaway budget, I suppose, in a run-up to the election. It did give everything something. I think farmers benefit specifically from the taxation, the increase in the USC band, we got a cut in the USC, and it was all focused on USC. And also, I suppose, a watershed moment, which really is the introduction of the earned tax credit of €550 for self-employed and farmers. In the past, PAYE workers automatically got a €1,650 credit. Now is the first time that actually farmers and self-employed have got this, and hopefully that will increase. And that's a big impact and I suppose a big change in direction.
So just to be clear on that, if you are self-assessed, you will have $550 taken off your tax bill automatically from next year.
Yeah, it works as a tax credit, and farmers actually who are working off farm and get a PAYE income, they automatically get a PAYE tax credit. So it's kind of mirroring that. We've always given out that that it's been unfair in the past. This is the first time they've actually addressed it and said it's going to change. We're going to have an equal footing, because the whole budget, I suppose, was about getting people to work, rewarding people for working and taking risks as well, which farmers are doing.
Can you maybe run us through a few examples of typical Irish farmers and how it will affect them?
Well, the first thing, we're normally seeing the income, the high rates, the 41%, the high rate and the low rate being cut. They didn't touch those or the bands this time around. It was all about the USC, the Universal Social Charge Tax, which no one likes, and it was brought in 2011. So for the average farmer, the changes both to the new tax credit and to the change in bands. A farmer typically earns about 26,000 across all sectors. He'll be better off by about €800. So then it depends, the farmers which actually earn more. And if you look at dairy farmers, the average farm income last year was about 70,000. They will gain €1,500 into their back pocket basically from those changes. So they are significant. They will see a difference in that.
One industry that was awaiting an answer from the budget was forestry. Has anything changed there?
It has, and it was interesting because during Michael Noonan's speech, forestry wasn't mentioned at all. So there was some concern that they weren't going to get the 5-year income average we talked about, and actually they didn't get it. What they did get was actually even better than that, a better solution, because they got a total removal of the 80,000 limit that they could actually harvest or clear fell in any 1 year. What foresters had and farmers with forestry had been doing is they actually had to manage their clear fell over a number of years to not go over the limit. Now they can just clear fell all when they need to, when they want to, and basically there's no income limit. It's all tax exempt. So that was a perfect solution, and I know Mr. Tom Hayes was very happy with that when he was talking about it.
Peter, there were also decisions made on what happens when you transfer your farm and your land to the next generation. How does tax affect that, and how will it affect it in the next budget?
Well, this was a very innovative new scheme, a family transfer partnership it's called. It was mentioned last time when we had the agri-taxation review last year. It was talked about but not brought in, and there was fears it wasn't going to be brought in again. But really it's a new structure that if a family, if a mother and father wants to hand over to the son or daughter, as it stands, really, it's a big decision. There's a lot of people just don't want to do it in one step, which the tax law is currently, you're better off doing it one step. So what this does is it allows you to go into a partnership and to over up to 10 years to have a phased transfer, a planned transfer. And really, that's good in one way because it starts that conversation. But really, the carrot is that, you get a €5,000 tax credit. So 5,000 a year basically for 5 years if you go into this partnership and if you transfer the farm. So it's an incentive to transfer the farm. You have that 5,000 a year. That enables two incomes to be created. The 5,000 is divided based on the profit share. It's up to 5 years. The farm can be transferred between 3 and 10 years. We go into a lot of detail on that. I answer a lot of the questions and answers on that in the journal this week.
Is everybody happy, or are there things missing and people complaining that they didn't get what they wanted?
Yeah, and I mean, very much. I mean, you tend to hear about the complaints, and this year, compared to particularly the last 5 years, there's been very little complaints from the budget. I mean, you look at even agri-industry, okay, they might complain that the average industrial wage has gone up by 50 cent an hour to 9.15, and particularly for some of the very labour-intensive manual industries, that is going to be more expensive for them. But I suppose, there is offshoots to that. But one of the big benefits that they have is, for particularly on transport, the co-ops or the processors, there's a big reduction in HGV, the lorries, the tax. I mean, that's come from 5,000, over 5,000, nearly 5,100 down to €900 max. I mean, that's a massive change and a massive saving for anyone who has lorries on the road.
What about spending? Is there much in the budget for farming families in terms of getting benefits or other forms of support?
Yes, and I mean, I suppose we know about, it was all targeted at the middle income, which a lot of farmers are in, so they will have more money in their pocket. But then you have the GP cares for the other 12, you have the new parental leaves and all this, not so much for farmers, I suppose, but maybe for farmers' wives. So listen, there is something for everyone, and as well, the increased nurses and the increased, guards and everything, we're hoping they'll make a difference on the ground as well. So all in all, it was a very good budget. Coming back to, I suppose you say, what wasn't there, and last year, income volatility was a big issue. And there was no real mention of that this year. Now, the Minister said in his briefing, and when I was talking to him in an interview, that, they brought in 5-year income averaging, and that's the first time people are moving to 5-year income averaging to try and reduce that volatility, but there was no specific schemes. I suppose the other thing you might look at is under TAMS, which was money allocated, they're bringing in a new arable TAMS scheme, and that really, I suppose, will allow tillage farmers to build new stores or develop new stores and drying, so it'll allow them to actually manage when they sell their crops. So that, I suppose, in a way, is a measure for income volatility.
Staying with TAMS, sheep farmers were waiting for assistance with fencing. Any movement on that?
This was one the Minister said, yes, sheep farmers asked him. It was there in the past and it wasn't being used. So they decided to drop it because it wasn't being used. And these things, but once it's dropped, I suppose sheep farmers want it again. So they asked the Minister, they got it in. So it was very much a budget where a lot was listened to. He reacted to that. He wanted to please as many people as he could as well. So, bringing the sheep fencing in wasn't a major issue. There's 35 million there for TAMS. So, we will see a lot of people applying, if cash flows allowed it, of course, whatever, for investment into their farm. But all in all, looking at TAMS, looking at all the other, the glass, I suppose, was another big headline one that people were looking at. There was enough money there, 142 million was allocated for glass next year. And, if you do the figures on that, and we've done the figures in the journal, reduce it by, divided by an average of 4,400, 35,000 up to 40,000 places in glass next year. So really, they have come through. There's a big increase in the agricultural budget for all those schemes. We've seen them rolled out all in 2005. There's been some difficulties rolling them out, and getting into them, but the money is there now for farmers to draw it down and increase farmers' incomes in the year ahead.
Okay, Peter, thanks very much. We have 10 pages in the journal this week, all online as well at farmersjournal.ie and on the app, so loads to read about the budget this week. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
As Peter mentioned there, this is clearly a pre-election budget, and spending to recruit new Gardaí will be closely watched by voters affected by rural crime. My colleague Odile Evans attended a large public meeting which took place on the issue in Thurles, County Tipperary last Thursday, with around 1,500 people in attendance.
Everyone that gathered there had either been a victim of rural crime themselves or knew someone that was a victim. The crowd came from local areas as well as neighbouring counties Laois and Cork. We heard some harrowing tales from members of the audience.
My name is Barry Gorman from Thurles. We've been a victim of burglaries on 3 occasions. The house was burgled 5 years ago, and the farmyard was burgled twice this year, once in June and once in August. We came down in the 8th of June down to the farmyard and drove into the farmyard, and noticed every door in the yard was open. First thing that struck me was the smell of diesel around the yard. They had spilled diesel everywhere. Broke into the diesel store and spilled diesel everywhere and stole all our tools, all our welding equipment, drills, saws, tools, anything they could get their hands on. On the same night, there was 3 of our neighbours were burgled as well in a line. 3 neighbours in a line were burgled, and a substantial amount of goods taken from them as well. The sad part about it, on that night, the first night we were burgled, there was a small child involved. And judging by the footprints in the diesel, he was about 5 or 6. And everywhere the child went, his father's footsteps were in front of him. So that child was afraid. Because during the night, I was in the yard at 12 o'clock, I was back at 6:30. We have children ourselves, 5 or 6. Where are they at that hour? They should be in bed. They're being taught how to steal. This is a vicious circle. So, hopefully, that father should be ashamed of himself to have his own child out rather than say that. On a road parallel to us, there's other three other farmers broken into. So there's another big call again. I mean, if Paddy was stuff each night to go to 10,000 for a couple of hours work, is there anybody here making 10,000 in a couple of hours? I don't think so. There's no social interaction anymore with our neighbours. You can't run into your neighbour and have a chat with them. It's by phone call. It's a formal arrangement. The social chat or the social call-in is totally gone, and I don't think it'll ever return. We all have gates, we're locking gates, we're all conscious of having this gate closed all the time. Some of us have automatic gates, and they're like, hey, you're living in a cell. You may as well be living in a cell if that's what we're doing now.
Basically, we don't need people with shotguns in their houses. We need the proper resources put back on. But with the Garda stations and the Garda resources, and stop letting these criminals out with big rap sheets and letting them out and letting them come down to the country. And that's the problem there.
We were broken into 2 years ago, and it was a beautiful September day, the sun was shining. I parked at the back door and I run in the back door because there's nobody at home. I'm still scared. I'm afraid all the time. Every time I go out, I'm kind of thinking, I hope it's not dark when I get home, and I hope there's somebody at home. The guards did arrive very quickly.
My name is Maura Byrne. I'm from Templemore, and I suppose you could call me Lockmore as well because I'm in between the two. I'm involved in Text Alert both in Lockmore and also in the communal area of Clonmore, setting up the area in Clonmore because of all the farm and local areas there. The fear actually here tonight is palpable. It really is scary. And Garda stations are closed, yes, and we make our 999 calls. We go through our Text Alert and we do all the things that we're told to do, and we never get feedback. I honestly believe that we have such a shortage of Garda that it's high time we clear this epidemic once and for all, like a bad disease. Really and truly, call in our army. They're there for our country. If I have a rotten tooth, I go to the dentist and I have it taken out, and that's what I consider the tugs of our country today. I have a brother who goes around, he takes his children to school. When he comes up from the outdoor farm at night, he's dismantling stuff in his cowshed, in his slatted unit, putting parts of it in the boot of the car, so that renders it unusable. Holy Mother of God, what are we coming to? I have my 2 shepherd dogs, German shepherds, and they love me, and they're loose. I have that, I have lights, but I had to do all that. I too am a widow, and I have to protect myself. I have the lights that come on when I'm coming into the house, and yes, I haven't been robbed, thank God, but the fear is there for every house I go to. All my relations, there's gates up everywhere, as the farming community have said here. There are gates up on the roads everywhere you go. It is like a jailhouse rock, only it is real for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Afterwards, I spoke to John Fanning, a farmer from Cork, who believes that the best form of prevention would be monitoring of criminals by electronic tags.
Going back to the tagging, we have got to be able to track them down. It's simple as that. And after that, then everything else will follow. You just have to know where the criminals are all the time. That is the biggest one. If you want to track down your machine, you can put a tracking device on anything. But if they don't do that, another thing is I'll come down on is the judges. I'll come down to the judges, they'll let them off too light. They're getting away with it. That's it. While they stay getting away with it, they'll do it. But if there's something there, and when they're locked up, don't lock them up with a colour television. Lock them up and give them nothing.
And finally, Ger Bergen from the IFA told us about how they are helping Gardaí.
We have to talk about solutions as well. And we're trying to do something in the IFA, and we're trying to do it in partnership with the Garda Síochána. They're the people charged with our security, and we have to do everything we can to put first the political pressure on to get them the resources they need to do their job, because they haven't got them now. And that's our responsibility as a rural organisation to fight for that. And we're very clear. We want more Gardaí, we want more patrols and a visibility of Gardaí in rural Ireland, first of all. And that would go a long way towards giving the peace of mind. And the worst thing is There's no solution in turning farms into locked up lockdown every night and the neighbourliness. That's not the way forward. The way forward is to stop these thugs before they ever get there. There's 3 areas that we're working on. Number 1 is theft stop with the Gardaí. We have 90,000 members in 950 branches in the country. We have in every parish in Ireland. We intend to roll out the scheme whereby they can mark all their equipment, link to their IFA membership number online as a way of preventing theft. And it has worked, because if stuff is marked, it can't be moved on. That's the first thing. And then there's a huge issue with the guards recovering stuff that can't be returned to their rightful owner, and that's another area that we could address. And we could do something on the insurance side as a consequence of that. We got that right. The second area that we're trying to do something, we've put forward €10,000 to Crime Stoppers for information leading to the arrest and conviction of people involved in livestock theft. And we've seen a conviction last week, and I welcome it. There's a number of people at that, and that's an absolute destruction of people's livelihoods. All their income for a year gone, with their livestock gone. The third area is mental theft, where machinery, equipment disappears into scrap yards and all through systems like that. We lobby for legislation, track and trace legislation, that people have to report what comes into them in this business.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
Last week, the European Rural Youth Conference took place in Strasbourg, and journalist Paula Melvin was there with Macra na Firma. She spoke with Julia Wagner, a young student from Austria, who described a very different way of farming to what we're used to.
Julia, what are prices like for milk in Austria at the moment?
At the moment, the prices are really low, and the farmers do not get a lot for them. So for a conventional farming, there are 30 cents per litre, I think, and for organic farmer, it's about 40 cents per litre.
How many cows would the average farmer in your region be milking?
In my area, but we are a really high area, there are about 20 to 40. But 40 is really much for us in our area. But there are some farmers which have 200, but these are just a handful. So we do not have big herds, really small herds.
That is so different to Ireland, because I'm a beef farmer's daughter, and friends of mine who are dairy farmers, I asked them last week how many cattle they'd have to milk to break even or to make it worth their while, and they said about 50. So it's so different between Austria and Ireland. Recently, during the summer, you stayed in Mullingar. You must know a lot about the differences between Irish farming and Austrian farming.
Yeah, it's really different because, like you said, the herds are much bigger. But in Austria, it's usually you go to work and you have a farm at home. So if you have just 20 cows, you need to work. That's maybe why we have such small farms. And everyone in Austria tries to produce their own products. And that is why we want to have our own cows.
A lot of people in my area around the farms in Dublin, they'd be beef farmers, but they'd be part-time farmers as well. I don't know many part-time dairy farmers because it's so labour intensive. Do you milk once a day or twice a day?
Twice a day.
That's an awful lot of work for a part-time farmer.
Yeah, that's a lot of work, but sometimes in Austria often just the woman make the farm work and the man goes to work.
I read recently that only 1 in 7 Irish farms is managed by a woman, so I think Austria are very advanced in terms of women in agriculture then, from what you're saying.
That's exactly, but in my school there are lots of field farmers, so with wheat and everything, and there the woman goes to work and the man stays at home. So the dairy farmers are always for a woman, and the big fields are always for the men. So it's also a little bit different in Austria sometimes. But we have most of dairy farmers, so most of the women do the farmers' work.
You mentioned tillage farming there, growing crops. In Ireland, it's very, very easy to grow grass. I imagine it's more difficult to grow grass in Austria than it is in Ireland.
No, I don't think so, because we have a better weather. And so it's easier to mow the grass and bring it in and make hay and everything like this. I think that's easier. But you have a better grass, I think, because a lot of rain. And this summer we had really terrible rain, so nearly no rain, and it was too hot. The hay was not like it should be, and so I think the Irish grass is better, but maybe difficult to get. And Austria grass is easy to get, but maybe not as healthy as the Irish.
What are the main crops grown around you then? Is it maize? Is it potatoes? Because potato and maize are considered very expensive to grow in Ireland.
In my area there are no maize or potatoes, so this is in the lower areas. So we are up to 700 meters, and this is usual for Austria. But there are some areas which are on 200 meters and not have low fields. They are high, so they can produce potatoes.
If your cattle are very, very high up, I imagine that's more difficult terrain, more difficult land for your cattle to be living on. It must be hard on your cows and hard on your cows' feet if they are walking to the parlour to be milked.
Oh no, I don't think that's difficult for them. They can can walk around everywhere where they want, and it's not like they fall down, so they can walk in our fields. It's not too heavy for them.
When you're talking about your cattle walking around, did you say they're in sheds just for winter or all year round?
They're just in the shed in the winter on an organic farm. But on a normal farm, they are usually inside the whole year. But there is a law in Austria, if you're an organic farmer, they need to be able to walk around. But if you're a conventional farmer, you don't have this law. But this law will change, and the conventional farmer will also have to let them walk around.
Do you hope to go and become a dairy farmer when you're older yourself?
Yeah, I hope so, and my boyfriend will get a farm. We would like to take this farm and produce the products there. Maybe we won't produce milk, because the milk price won't become more. Maybe we will just produce our products we need, because it's a really small farm we will get. And on this farm there's a lot of wood, so we will do a lot of forestry. This is what we have planned.
You yourself, aren't you studying agriculture in university at the moment?
I'm in a secondary college for agriculture, so when I'm finished I have the A level. Yes, a big exam, and then you're an agricultural engineer.
Well, vielen Dank for talking to me all about agriculture in Austria and about women in farming.
Thank you very much.
Also from Austria, MEP Elisabeth Kustinger answered Paula's questions on current farming issues in the European Parliament, starting with the genetically modified crops, an area where European institutions cannot seem to find an agreement at the moment.
Especially on the issue of GMO planting, I think it was very important to give the member states the opportunity to decide their own way, because we often have in society within the member states a very negative picture of GMO crops, and these member states should have the possibility to opt out and to ban GMO planting from their fields. This is a possibility we give now, because I also think a very sensitive issue where we have to listen to the people.
I was absolutely delighted to speak to two young Austrian farmers about the amount of women in agriculture, especially in dairy. Why do you think there's so many more women in agriculture in Austria than Ireland?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's in history that it was always in common that women run the farm. It was not only stick to men, and especially the last decades, also due to the small structure of the farms, a lot of men decided to work outside farms in another field of jobs, and women of course took the farms. So it's more or less quite common, and women see each other as the bosses on the farm and take a lot of decisions, although it's of course important, especially in our fields and our structures, that we have family farms. Family farming is, I think, the main also point for the future. We have to provide the families the right framework to find or to have a vision to stay in the field of agriculture in the next decades.
Speaking about the bosses, it was more so the bosses in Europe who were playing hardball with Russia, and as a result of the dealings with Russia, farm incomes are down up to 25%. Do you think there should be reprimands or consequences to those people who brought this sufferings on those farmers?
This was a political decision of all the leaders of the member states of the European Union, because we have war and conflict, especially with Ukraine, but also with Crimea. This was the ongoing process. Of course, this crisis cannot be paid by the farmers, and there are a lot of funds and measures which should compensate the gap in the income. True is, or a fact is, that not only the Russian ban or the ban by the Russians to be clear. We have a big economic crisis in China. A lot of imports can't get out from Europe. We have the abolition of the quota, especially in the milk sector. So member states produce more, especially also Ireland has increased the production of milk, and facts together more or less make the prices going down. And of course we now have, or especially Commissioner Phil Hogan makes a special fund for 420 million euros to compensate more or less the big gap in the market.
As a final question, Paris conference is coming up in November, December. Will this have much of an effect on Irish farmers at home and how we farm?
Yeah, there are a lot of ideas more or less to empower the farming or the agricultural sector into reducing especially CO emission or methane or ammoniac and other things. I don't think that agriculture as a whole sector can only be the main responsible for reducing or for providing a better way. There's a lot of other sectors, especially in economic, in industries, in transport, and it only can be a bundle of measures more or less. I think farming and the agriculture sector did a lot in the last years, but it's not possible. For example, we did a lot that milk cows for animal welfare reasons go out, are not only in the stables anymore. It would be not the right way to bring them back and make filters in the stables. We have to consider the field as a whole, and animal welfare is a special issue, which is very important, of course. But if farmers have to invest because of new measures, we also have to give them the possibility to invest in form of money or whatever.
Elisabeth Kossinger, MEP for Austria. Vielen Dank.
Bitte sehr gerne. Liebe Grüße nach Irland.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Finally, Irish Country Living editor Mairead Lavery and consumer editor Ciara Leahy gave us an update on the Women in Agriculture conference coming up at the end of the month, and tickets are selling fast.
Before we discuss the conference itself, can we have a quick chat about the night before? There's something special planned, I hear.
Yes, last year we did this for the first time. We held an evening event before the conference. In a way, it was to encourage women from the south of Ireland to come up, because it's no mean feat getting as far as Trim, especially if you're south of the M50. And it was an enormous success. I mean, we were sold out, the hotel was sold out, and we had a great programme on. So it seemed absolutely fitting that we do the same thing again this year. And we've a real treat in store for people. We are using the event on the night before. It's a gala dinner, but it's also the presentation of the Women in Agriculture Awards. And these awards are the only awards in the country that recognise the role that women play in agriculture. They play in actual farming itself, in the entrepreneurship around farming, product development, using the resources of the farm, and also in terms of a Lifetime Achievement Award for a woman who's made a difference when it comes to agriculture in this country. So we're really looking forward to that event. It's a way of recognising the role of women in agriculture, and it's what we're all about.
And I suppose it's also inspiring for the women that are sitting there. You know, before we've had the award ceremony has been quite a small, intimate affair, but now showcasing these case studies in front of all these women,
we used to only we've had these awards now. This will be the third running of these awards. Up to now, we've generally just had a small lunch with the finalists and their families at it, and the sponsors, FPD, and ourselves. But now it's going to be in the spotlight with a much larger audience. And the interesting thing is there will be women who were at the conference last year who are going to be awarded on that Wednesday night.
That's fantastic.
And they don't know what award they're getting yet. So, look, it's going to be great fun.
Absolutely. And I know from reading the feedback forms, something that the women have always asked for is a bit of a fashion show. So I hear that that's added to the agenda.
Yeah, we're doing that, and we're doing it with a little bit of a difference. The clothes and everything are being supplied by McElhinney's Nat Boy, which is just down the road. And they're also giving a very nice 25% discount voucher for all who attend. But it's the ladies of the IFA Farm Family Committee who are going to be modelling the clothes.
Excellent.
We're fashion shows and all the rest of it, and magazine publications are always being criticised for not showing real women, for basically stick insects and size sixes. We guarantee that's not what's going to be there at that event, and the women are looking forward to it. It's going to be a great treat, and I think it'll showcase good fashion in Ireland as well.
Absolutely. Now give me a quick synopsis of the agenda. It's jam-packed again this year as always. Who are the speakers you're really looking forward to hearing?
Well, there's always somebody that creates a surprise at the Women in Agriculture Conference. I mean, a speaker that you have on the schedule, but you don't know the impact that they're going to have on the audience. Last year, Jenny Kent, speaking about her husband Bobby and early onset Alzheimer's, just went down, just touched a chord. Con Murphy, speaking about his depression. Absolutely. He got a standing ovation and has been an inspirational speaker around the country since our conference. So I'm wondering who is going to be that person or persons at this conference. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers. Our keynote speaker, by popular demand, the vote of our readers, was Magella O'Donnell. And I know, Ciara, you moved heaven and earth to get her to be here. And I expect her honesty and her straightforwardness is going to really appeal to our audience. We've a new kind of format as well. We've an on the couch session that former editor of the Farmers Journal, Matt Dempsey, will be chairing. And he's going to be speaking to Mary Flavin of Flavin's Porridge, Colette Toomey from Clonakilty Back Pudding, and our first Women in Agriculture winner who went on to win the European Award, Anne Moore, about the family business, growing it, passing it on, all the different things that you have to take account of. From the TV world, we have Operation Transformation's Dr. Aoife Hearn, and she says it's about being the best version of yourself. That's what really, really matters. Evelyn O'Rourke, I think she has a very interesting story to tell. Imagine the joy of finding out that she was pregnant with, I think, is her second child, and 4 days later to have it confirmed that she had cancer and to have to go through the pregnancy. And we know already from our readers that she has been an inspiration to some of them who faced the very same lonely journey. So, I mean, it's just going to be a great day. It always is. It's about the ladies who attend. The tickets are almost sold out. Really, if anybody is interested, they better kind of call us fast. And it's about the networking. It's about the talking. It's about making a friend. It's about sharing a confidence, because in so many ways the day allows women to do that. And we're hoping to give, unlike some years, we will give time for that to happen at this conference.
Great.
So you've got the details of if anybody needs to get tickets.
Yeah, so if you're interested in getting a ticket for the Women in Agriculture Conference, you can ring Sinead on 014199505. There's also details in this week's Irish Country Living, or log on to farmersjournal.ie.
And to remember, we've held the ticket price. It's our 8th conference. We started at €50. We've held it for 8 years at €50. And that's the whole event, teas and coffees, plus a lovely lunch. Now, the event the evening before is a different kettle of fish.
It's €85, but that includes the gala event, your dinner, your overnight accommodation. So really, all in all, considering that you're staying the night before, it's a great deal as well.
It's a fantastic package. And again, the hotel is filling up very fast.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.